Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second local plan webinar being held by Peterborough City Council. My name's Oliver Deed. I'm from a company called ECF, and we are supporting the council on the consultation process for this stage of the local plan. This is, as I said, the second webinar session. We've done a couple of pop-ups in and around Peterborough as well. And we've been having some really good conversations with residents about what's in the local plan. General comments, feedback over the last few weeks, which has been great. We are recording this particular session, and this will go onto the website within the next couple of days. We're going to, the running order for the session is we're going to do a little presentation just outlining the key parameters of the local plan and what's in it at this stage. And then we'll move into a question and answer session. If you've got a question, you can submit that using the Q&A function, which you should find on the bottom of your screen. And I'll just say, we're going to probably reiterate this several times today, the consultation closes on the 29th of May. So do make sure you get your submissions in before then. And at some point, I will put the website details on screen or in the chat so that you can take those away and fill that out later on. I'm going to introduce members of the team, or get the team to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Maria. Maria, who are you and what position do you hold?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Cafano. I am a Strategic Planning Officer at Peterborough City Council, and I'm part of the team that is coordinating and processing the local plan.
Brilliant, thanks, Maria. Joanna, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for coming along over your lunch break. My name's Joanna Sawkins. I'm a policy officer at Peterborough City Council, working on the local plan review. I've been heavily involved with developing the climate and health policies within the local plan, and I've been involved with putting the whole document together, as well as some public engagement materials. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing the plan, some content from the plan with you today, and then also answering questions and helping you to formulate consultation responses.
Thanks, Joanna. And last but not least, Jane.
Hello everyone, my name is Jane Wilkinson and I'm a Communications Manager at the City Council, and I'm supporting the team with the local plan, the draft local plan consultation.
Brilliant. So we're going to move into the presentation now. So this will take about 20 minutes, maybe a tad longer, and then we'll move into a question and answer session. So you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions, and we'll do that at the end. So like clockwork, we're going to hand over to Maria and Joanna, who are going to take us through a bit of a presentation. So I'm going to go on mute. It's over to you.
Hello, yes, I was just having a little sneak peek at the attendee list. So hello, it would be great to talk to you in person when you submit your questions in the Q&A. If you would like to come on mic and talk to us later in the event, just say, and I think you can be promoted to come into this sort of video space and talk. Right, so as this is an online event, I'm going to assume that lots of you are quite savvy with the internet, and I'm going to share some of our online materials and use those in place of presentation slides. However, there is a formal presentation on the draft local plan recorded and saved on the council's YouTube channel. This is a recording of the online event we did last week, and it's a presentation from the planning policy manager on the whole local plan review process, as well as the draft local plan. But I'm going to focus more just on the draft local plan that we have developed, and I'm going to use our story map. So many of you will be familiar with the local plan review page on the council's website, and what I'm going through today is this. It's the draft local plan story map. So if you want to go back and look at it yourself or follow along, that's how you access it. Okay. So as you know, the council are preparing a new local plan. We have to review our local plan every 5 years. So although this local plan that we're working on is a 20-year vision, the new plan will be reviewed every 5 years. The last existing local plan, is from July 2019. So local plans, they guide how places change over time, and the Peterborough local plan will be a policy document which directs the growth and regeneration of the Peterborough region. So this is the city centre and the surrounding villages. This is the second in a series of consultations that we're holding on the new local plan. Previously, in 2023, we held what's known as an issues and options consultation. And in this, we asked people what they felt were the key issues facing the city and the surrounding rural areas, and what the local plan should do in response. Now, 2025, it's a long process preparing a local plan, I should say. Now in 2025, we've published a draft local plan. And then, yeah, this story map and what I say today is going to give you a good summary of the strategies, policies and sites in that draft local plan. So I mentioned earlier in my introduction that submitting comments is a really key part of the consultation, and to make clear that you can send multiple comments. You can comment on a particular policy, particular site, or more than one. And you can do this most easily through the online comments form. There is a link to it here. There's also a link on the draft local plan review page of the website. And it's an online form that takes you through step by step how to give your comments. You can make comments using a paper form. There's forms downloadable on the web page, and you can email those or you can post those. But our preferred method is the online form, because it does save a lot of paperwork. You have till the 29th of May, just before midnight, to make your comments. Okay. So the local plan is guided by a clear vision for the future of the region, and is built on the basis of some key objectives. I thought I'd share with you this vision for the future of Peterborough, so Peterborough in 2044. So the draft plan imagines this future Peterborough as a sustainable net zero carbon region. It's a place that where well-designed, inclusive and healthy neighbourhoods provide quality housing to meet the needs and aspirations of all communities. In the future Peterborough, new infrastructure, including schools, health facilities and open space, will all have been provided at the same time as new homes. So by 2044, we'll be meeting serious challenges of climate change. Carbon emissions would have been significantly reduced, bringing vital benefits such as cleaner air and reduced fuel poverty. Nature will have been given space to thrive through a network of wildlife-rich habitats and accessible natural green spaces. So the Peterborough of 2044 will be known as a walkable, livable, lovable city, with footpaths and cycleways providing safe, efficient and enjoyable ways to move around the city. The city's iconic historic core will have been maintained and strengthened. the riverfront and railway station will have been redeveloped, and the local economy will be stronger and more resilient. The local economy will be powered by a more diverse and higher skilled, higher paid workforce. The city will be surrounded by a thriving network of characterful villages set within an attractive rural landscape, each with local services and facilities providing for the community needs and with a vibrant and diverse economy. That sounds wonderful. And how do we get there? So planning policy sets a strategy for how to get there through spatial planning. So what the built environment can do. And I'll talk you through that spatial strategy just now. I'm not going to go through every single section of the story map. I'll be passing over to my colleague Maria to talk through some of the policies. So you'll have a break from me at some point. But this section is very important. So we'll spend some time talking you through the spatial strategy. So the spatial strategy is heavily informed by the settlement hierarchy. Settlement hierarchy is a framework which defines and categorizes places in Peterborough according to their size and the services they can provide to people. So the framework has been used to indicate which places are most suitable for new housing and where the countryside needs to be protected. So within the draft local plan, there are some key sections early on, the spatial strategy for housing and the spatial strategy for employment. And if you have a look at these, you'll see how these strategies are steering development decisions towards larger places, because we know that these offer the best access to services and facilities. They do so now, and they will do so in the future. So we've got this map here, and lots of the maps within the story map are interactive. So maybe later in your own time, you can go to the story map and zoom in, have a look around particular areas within Peterborough, and have a look at some of the data on these maps. So the red line is the boundary of the urban area. The yellow blocks are sites. And if you click on the blocks, you can find information about that site. So, for example, learning that the site is allocated for residential, could be allocated for employment development. Then you also can see here what the associated policy number is for that site. And therefore you can go, if you wish, you can go to the plan, find that numbered policy, read more. And then you can also reference that number when you make your comment, so that it's very clear which site you're putting a comment in about, or which policy you're putting in a comment about. Yes, so take some time to have a look at that if you can. The purple outlines are the urban extensions, and pink colours are purple and pink blocks are employment land. To give you some idea of the scale, this draft local plan estimates that just over 20,000 new homes will be built in Peterborough between 2024 and 2044. This number comes in line with our targets, the targets that are set for local authorities by central government. At the moment, in Peterborough, our delivery rate for new housing is just under or just around 1,000 a year, and this would remain the same going forward. Many places have seen their targets go up, but ours has gone up a little bit, but not that much. So it's kind of the same pace with development as it has been in recent years.
Anna, sorry, am I right to just butt in there?
Yeah.
Just on the housing numbers, I just want to clarify that 20,000 new homes, that's over that 20-year period, but it is also good to address that there are included in that, there are just over 9,000 dwellings, committed sites that are already committed so far. And then there are also sites that have been carried forward, which is nearly 5,000 homes, meaning that that is reduced to us seeking just over 6,000 new homes altogether, just to clarify.
Yeah, so many of these sites are not new. They're familiar. They're going through the planning system already, or have been in previous local plans. So thanks, yeah, Maria. Most of the new houses will be built within the city of Peterborough and at existing urban extensions at Hampton, Paston Reserve and Great Haddon, Norwood, East of England Showground. But we are also proposing two new settlements, one north of the A47 near Castor and Aylesworth, and another south of Market Deeping. There are policies which strictly control what can happen on the on sites, but on the topic of urban extensions and new settlements, we have some specific controls. So if you're particularly interested in these sort of sites, these larger sites, do have a look. Policy LP4, I think it is, in the draft plan, which covers new settlements and guides them to be developed as sustainable places, diverse in terms of residential opportunities, healthy, well-designed, low carbon and climate resilient. So a little bit more about employment, and then we'll just hand over into policies. But just to say that the need to find new employment land was a key driver for getting going with the review of the local plan. We're really struggling for employment land at the moment, so we're pleased to propose some new employment sites like through this draft local plan. Specifically 205 hectares. And this does include the new strategic employment site north east of Standground. Right, I thought it might be nice to hand over to my colleague Jane at this point, just to talk a little bit about the plans for the city centre, including the station quarter and the North Westgate opportunity areas. Jane?
Hello, yes, thank you. So in terms of what Joanna was talking about, so going back to 2023 when we had our issues and options consultations, that was like called a call for sites where, you know, landowners and developers could put forward sites they thought were appropriate and they could be reviewed and then, you know, make it into the draft local plan. So one particular area where we received a lot of feedback was around development, brownfield site. So that's land, correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, please, that's sort of been previously developed and is, you know, sort of derelict. Yeah, so land that was previously developed and now not in use. So over 70% of sort of city centre sites that are earmarked for development and have been allocated are brownfield sites across the city. So that in relation to projects like the Station Quarter. So that project is a government-funded scheme that we're waiting to hear approval on, and it's around phase 1 of that sort of master plan. So it's around developing the areas around the station, but also unlocking development plots and opportunities for the future to drive investment and opportunity in that area. And obviously Peterborough is a key transport gateway, not just for the city, but the whole eastern region. So that project in particular is really exciting and brings lots of opportunities. It is obviously, though, early days. It's sort of, down the line. And similarly, North West Gate, which is not too far from the station at all. That's obviously a huge piece of city centre land, and it's under currently private control. But it's important that a local plan looks at how a city is going to develop, so that we can understand the growth and make sure we've got all that infrastructure and amenities to support it. It's not just about new houses, it's about the right houses in the right locations, and to make sure that people have access to schools, doctors' surgeries, leisure facilities, and those sorts of things. So yeah, does that cover that off?
Nice. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jane. So yes, moving on to the policies. The plan includes over 40 policies, and they're all there to shape the development and help deliver that Peterborough of 2044 that we imagined at the start. We described in our vision and objective section. So I'd like to dig into just a summary of the policies. Don't worry, we're not going to go through all 40, but in your own time, maybe you'd like to. And Maria's going to talk us through some of those as she's been intrinsic to their development. So over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, so if we start with the design and amenity of what's included in the local plan, the policy 8 design has been formulated to specify, to try and aim to achieve good design, creating attractive and healthy places for people to live, to relax, to visit, but also to operate and be functional within that space. We've used national policies, model design code to formulate the public policy, and this is sectioned out into 10 characteristics of design, including resources, context, lifespan, nature, public spaces, and it works for decision makers to create new, well-designed new housing, to make it energy efficient, and to make it well connected and accessible for all. So it's a big policy. There's a lot of broad text to it, but it all comes to make sure we have the best quality housing, and this is all intrinsic to the design. Then just going on slightly to the amenity. Sorry, Joanna, just to skip ahead. Amenity provision looks at the existing occupiers and how any new development coming forward could impact on their spaces by noise pollution, vibration, by with the building works, light pollution, and then it looks at amenity provision for any future occupiers to make sure there's no impacts there as well. So that's LP9 as well. And then if we move on to housing, this is more looking at the targets that is approximately 30% of new homes that is to be affordable within new developments, and making sure that we have a mix of housing tenureships and housing types to meet those needs. And the housing needs has been set and has been externally provided with that evidence base to understand what Peterborough needs within our area. This includes caravans, park homes, shared ownerships, multiple occupancy, and also trying to making homes adaptable for elderly people, and so that they can stay within their home for longer. So it covers a whole expanse of different types of groups of people, and making sure there's houses for everyone. Yeah, then likely to touch on employment, the economy and skills. This is probably a very narrowed down section of what is within the local plan, but we have obviously sites that have been put forward for employment, that there is individual policies to explain them, to give us site specific requirements that these will need to comply with. But essentially, the employment and economy of Peterborough is looking to align with the council's economic growth strategy, making sure that employment policies are suitable for Peterborough, for the employment we want to see, such as business development, research and development, to improve the skill force within Peterborough. So there's plenty of different policies within that. Yeah, then moving on to town centres in Peterborough, we have a specific town centre policy that recognises the importance of Peterborough's town centres. This not only includes the city centre, it's also district centres, local centres, which Peterborough has plenty of. There's lots to cover there, and to make sure that there are suitable shopping frontages that are also designed to work within the design of that shopping area, especially in the city centre. So that's a separate policy area there as well. So yeah, there's lots of new planning, national planning guidance that's come forward that we have to comply with, and that is all detailed there for the decision makers and for readers of the local plan to make sure that their planning application complies with.
Right, and then I think I'm going to say a bit about this one. So within the draft local plan, there are specific transport and infrastructure policies which identify specific projects that will be needed, that will need to be delivered in order to support sustainable growth. And transport forms part of this. We've got a picture there of electric vehicle charging, and how we can, there's policies to direct development towards sustainable transport options, including electric vehicles, but also public transport, walking and cycling. So do take a look at those policies, particularly if this is an area of passion for you. As mentioned, the plan includes policies to support the region to transition to net zero, and to mitigate the effects of climate change, such as the effects we're already seeing. So deal with the climate change we already have, and play our part in preventing further climate change. So therefore, the plan has policies which really do support the production and use of renewable energy, and also policies which seek to prevent the release of what's called embodied carbon into the atmosphere. So construction, of course, produces a lot of carbon emissions, especially if you look to demolish a building, and that store of carbon is released into the atmosphere. So we've introduced policies into the plan to lower that impact in quite a serious way. Now, Maria, did I need to do this one, or was I handing over to you for this one? I can't remember.
I don't mind doing it. It's fine. Yeah. So this is in regards to flood risk and water management. We can touch base on the climate change impact there as well, Joanna, if you'd like. But just to begin with, we have a policy in the local plan LP 31 that addresses development proposals to align and to comply with to adopt a sequential test, so to look at the flood risk management and how this will be managed throughout the development of that site, with acknowledgement of flood zones, so to prevent development from flood risk. So there's a whole policy there to address this. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then this was me also. This is LP 32, which outlines the protection and conservation of Peterborough's integral part of it being a historical and all of the heritage assets which are in Peterborough, to try to seek and prevent them from being at risk, and to make sure they are a part of future growth and to enjoy their settings and make sure it is part of the future generations to come. So there's a policy that outlines that specific part of development there.
And then, yeah, the final one is about natural environment. So there's a whole section within the draft local plan about the natural environment and lots of key policies. They're aimed at restoring the natural environment and increasing biodiversity in Peterborough. So there's policies which restrict development in the countryside. There's policies which create more green infrastructure, ones which protect local green space and open space. And then also something I suppose quite new and innovative for Peterborough is a policy which requires development to improve the biodiversity of the site by a minimum of 20%. So whatever comes next has to be 20% better than what's there currently for in terms of biodiversity, so for wildlife. We also have policies which safeguard and enhance the Nen Valley, and which improve and expand Peterborough's trees, woodland and hedgerows. Wonderful network. Want to protect what's there and then also improve. Then also there is a policy to protect peat soils, which are an important carbon store. And then finally, we have a landscape character policy, green wedge policy and country park policy to support the natural environment, but also to secure the identity of Peterborough as very green environment place for years to come. The best way to explore the final section of the story map and a key chapter within the plan, the sites, is to use the mapping function and explore them yourselves. So as we mentioned, the plan proposes just over 20,000 new dwellings. Yes, some are already making their way through the planning system, but some are completely new. And then also 205 new hectares of employment land. There are maps on the story map, so you can explore them there, but we thought before we open up for questions, we would just demo something called the policies map, which is very detailed GIS map of the sites and many other things. So Maria, shall I show it on my screen, or would you like to share screen to demo?
I don't mind sharing my screen.
Okay, I'll stop. And we're coming to the end, so do get your questions ready.
There we go. Let me know if you can see that. Yeah, thank you. Yep, so this is the interactive policies map that we have formulated following the all of the sites that were suggested to us. So we have obviously gone through an extensive assessment to undertake this and produce this, but essentially there are different colours that show different things. So for example, the purple outlined areas are for employment development. You have residential development, which is outlined in orange, and I believe you can click on them and they will give you a bit more detail, and you'll be able to find the policy number which is referenced to that policy within the local plan. So you'll be able to see more detail that's outlined in the local plan, including housing numbers, hectares if it's an employment area. You then have boundaries of the authority area, which is all outlined in this layer list as well. So we've also included green wedges, country parks that you'll see all here. So these are all of these specified areas that have been acknowledged through our formulation of this policies map. So yeah, you can zoom in where it's more full. So the city centre has a lot of regeneration happening. You can also see the brown outline here is the conservation area. So you can see how we're working with all aspects of heritage, and then also flood risk. So yeah, we have to comply with policy that way. Joanna, is there anything else you'd like to go over on this map?
How can people access this map?
Oh yes, good question. Well, it's on the local plan review website, which is the Peterborough City Council website. I believe it's probably one down from the draft local plan access of the PDF. So there's a link on the local plan review page, which will take you straight to this, and you'll be able to access it there.
Great. All right. So that's a little, well, kind of large insight into the plan. And that's all from us, actually.
Thanks,
Ollie. So feel free to.
We'll go into questions. Hopefully, I don't know if the webinar chat's working, but I've posted 3 links in there. So I don't know if other panelists can see it. So I posted the map that we've just seen, the website that we've just run through, and a link to the survey, which again it is to be completed before the 29th of May. So if anybody's got any questions, put them into the Q&A function, or raise your hand, and then I'll bring you on to talk, and you should find those functions at the bottom of your screen depending on what device you're accessing this from. I'm gonna ask a first question, which is about the employment site at Stanground and how you might be addressing or how that site might address issues around, or potential issues around flooding, for instance, which was something that was raised in the pop-up that we had on Saturday, and I thought it would just be worth broaching there. Maria, I know you're a flooding expert, so how are you going to address that on a site like that one to the northeast of Stanground?
Yeah, so obviously that area to the east is quite. There are parts of it that are heavily at risk of flooding. So when you do look at the policies map, you see less housing allocations to the east. So that is one of the number one factors to hash out housing. The employment land is slightly less vulnerable for flood risk, purely because less people living there, there's less at risk essentially. So through the assessment of an employment site, there would be flood and sequential tests that will have to be undertaken from the developer to ensure that there are flood risk advantages that are in place for that. So there's always an assessment. There's an assessment a smaller scale assessment that's done at our level. We've undertook a strategic flood risk assessment, which goes through both housing sites, housing allocations, and the employment allocations, and looks at the vulnerabilities of those areas. You'll be able to find that in the local plan public library as well. So that goes through that very, very extensively. And that's this stage is what the local plan does. Then moving forward, once the local plan's adopted and we've finalised those sites, any employment land will be have to go through a process as well of flood risk and meeting those needs. So yeah.
Great. Okay. We've had a question come through, which I'll read verbatim and get one of the team to answer. So there is nothing in the transport policy that addresses problems with railway crossings and the impact these should have on housing provision. This question is specific to Helston. So Joanna, I'll hand over to you as you've got your hand up.
Yes, so the specific things like improvements to level crossings would come a little bit later in the process. There's another large strategy being prepared called the Infrastructure Delivery Plan, which is produced to accompany a local plan. And that policy, that strategic document really that goes into the specific detail, but it doesn't do that until the sites are agreed. So at this stage, these are proposed sites, but if a site made it through into the submission version of a local plan, then at that stage, I suppose, where the specific upgrade projects would be identified. So I just lost the question, but it was about a specific railway crossing in Helpston. Yeah, so that the problems would be known, the need for improvement would be known, and then it would be costed. The project would be costed, and then it would be the developer contributions, the money that's released through the development of the site, that would pay for that upgrade or new provision. So it's a very interesting question. I think maybe it might interest you to take a look at the current infrastructure delivery plan to give you an idea of like other railway crossings, projects that have been funded through developer contributions. That infrastructure plan accompanies the existing local plan. And then later in this process, for the agreed sites, there'll be a new, as I say, a new one produced, and that will have the detail.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much. I'm just trying to Google the delivery plan so I can pop that in as to help the resident on that one. I've got another question here. Two questions. Are the 20,000 homes in the plan, are the sites for 14k already shown on the plan, and what is the approach for sourcing areas for the additional 6k homes required? And Maria, you've really sharply popped your hand up, so I'm going to pull you onto the stage. Yeah,
so good question, really good question. The sites, oh, that's disappeared. The 20,000 homes that are in the plan, the 14,000 homes are already shown on the plan. I believe it's mostly like Great Haddon. You'll see that there's a lot of committed sites that are outlined on the interactive map already. So yes, it does show those that are committed already. And then what is the approach for sourcing areas for the additional 6? How was that undertaken? Well, in July 2023, we undertook the call for sites process, which welcomed developers, landowners to come forward to provide us with land that is available for these homes. So this is how we have formulated that through the site's evidence report to justify our findings through individual analysis such as heritage, flood risk, and through other separate evidence-based documents. So these 6,000 homes are also outlined in the policies map. And that's all through the call for sites process, which is ongoing as well. We're still welcoming further if anyone does have sites to come forward. It's still at the draft plan stage, so yeah, it could all change. So we have to acknowledge what the comments that come through, any sites that come forward or don't. We have to acknowledge that still. So it's all the draft stages, but that's what we have found so far.
Brilliant. I'll keep you there if that's okay, just because it's sort of linked, which is, can you explain, another question, could you explain what happens after this consultation period is over? Understand there's a further consultation, and what is a draft local plan examination? What does that mean? Marie, if you start, and then I'll bring Jane in as well.
Yeah, I can start with that. So it's quite an extensive piece of work from now until the next submission. So we will have to go through and summarise all of the comments, trying to best to acknowledge how they have been how the local plan has been interpreted, what people do and don't want to see. We have to speak to listen to stakeholders as well, such as Environment Agency, Historic England. There's lots of other large statutory consultees that we have to take into consideration for these sites, as well as cross-boundary other local authorities that are a part of this too. So yeah, I can leave it there and let you both answer that.
The rest, Jane.
Yeah, I don't know if it's helpful if I go through the entire timeline. So in terms of public participation, so back in July 2023, when we spoke about the issues and options consultation, that was stage 1. So that call for sites, working with developers and landowners and agents. That was stage 1, and then 2024. That was all being assessed, and the draft local plan was being formulated, and we were looking to go out to consultation last autumn, but we wanted to wait for the sort of national planning consultation that the government had just launched around sort of proposed changes. So that included the introduction of mandatory housing targets and some other changes to policy. So we've been able to bake all that into the draft local plan, which has meant now why we're consulting in the spring. So the current stage now is stage 2. So that's the public consultation. So once that closes, like Maria says, all the feedback gets uploaded. So if you've submitted a comment, you'll be notified that feedback has been included and uploaded, and then you later this year, sort of November, December time, we'll have a pre-submission publication. That's something we have to do by law, and then sort of depending on how that goes, we'll look to submit sort of spring 2026, and then after that we have an independent examination. So those kind of exact dates are set by the inspector, but it's something that it has to go through, and then we'll look to get the inspector's report sort of later that year, maybe around November, December of 2026. So obviously depending on that outcome, all being well, we could have the adoption of the new local plan by the end of 2026.
Got you. Thank you very much. Joanna.
Yeah, just to touch on this other bit of the question where draft local plan examination, there isn't an examination of the draft local plan. It's the submission version that is examined. So later down the line to 2026. And then also in that submission consultation that Jane just mentioned that will happen towards the end of the year, it's a little bit different to the draft local plan consultation, because the sort of parameters of what you can comment on are different. It's more about areas of the plan which are unsound. It's a situation where the comments made in that submission consultation, they don't go to us at the council first, they go straight to the examiner. So they're dealt with as part of the examination process. So it makes it quite different. And yet this unsoundness, you're commenting on things that problems with the evidence base, things that you're kind of helping the examiner, I suppose is a way to describe it. You're playing part in the examination. This is the most important consultation in terms of changing the plan.
So thank you for that clarification, really helpful. I don't think I've got any other questions. I think we've answered everything that's in the Q&A, and I don't see any hands up either. So I think I'm going to call proceedings to a close and just finish on saying, please do get your comments in before the 29th of May. As Joanna said, this is a really important stage of the process to affect change. So please get your comments in, and hopefully you've got the various different links that are in the chat. But if you go onto the Peterborough City Council website and you head to the local plan page, you'll find all of the details on there. So I will say thank you very much to our 3 panelists. Thank you to everybody that has come along and participated today, and we'll draw a line under this now. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers
you.
all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.